Well, welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Vern Glenn, a CBS affiliate, KPIX TV in San Francisco. Russell Jackman is off today. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a trivia question. And today, since Russell's not here, he loves basketball. What? I'm banned from baseball? That's our trivia theme. And
really? Okay.
And in order of, and in honor, of baseball, our guest today is going to be former San Francisco Giants general manager Bobby Evans, who was recent. We'll say he was singly responsible for 3 World Series rings.
There we go.
Please don't. I'm not even left-handed. I'm not responsible.
Yeah.
Hey, we had quite a good run. That was fun.
Absolutely.
Hey, Edward, I have inside knowledge. Just for the fans out there, this is kind of an ACC rivalry that we're having this morning. North Carolina Tar Heel and a Virginia Cavalier.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's right.
Yeah,
You guys know your history of where you each come from.
that's right.
I don't think either one of us got past the 64 this year. So
Yep.
All right. This segment, but tell you what, one of the reasons we want to have Bobby on, we'll get into this on the next segment, is I wanted to get his take on moving the All-Star game. What it would be like if you're a general manager in this position compared to just, a player who's with the other players with, it's like, okay, we're going to go ahead and move the game. So anyway, that's going to be our main topic, and then we'll get into some other things too. But this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments, currently yielding over 7%, secured by real estate, with no losses, by the way. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. Check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Stay with us. You are listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn. And our special guest is Bobby Evans, who's a former San Francisco Giants general manager during their historic 3 World Series in 5 years. Bobby, welcome back. A friend of the show who's been on a couple of times. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Good.
I was fortunate to serve as an assistant GM during those championships. Most of my tenure with the Giants was, of course, just working alongside Brian Sabian and Larry Baer and putting together 25 years of Giants baseball. But my last few years, of course, as general manager, and we had some fun, but it came to an end a couple of years ago, and I missed the guys, but we had a lot to be proud of and look back on. So,
do you still stay in contact with the team?
Oh, of course, and around baseball, and so a lot going on in the game these days. So.
Okay.
Yeah, Bobby, when you spend so much time with one team and in the game, and then all of a sudden you're not. How hard was it for you to unplug, or can you let yourself unplug? Maybe you can't.
Well, no, it is hard, but it makes you appreciate the amount of energy and amount of focus that you have to have day in and day out when you realize that you can go to bed at night and not know the final score of a minor league game or what the health is of a certain player or situation. And so it does give you a chance to get a different perspective, but it also opens your eyes to 30 teams. I mean, as much as we try to scout and observe and pay attention to what's going on in the game, we're really, focusing so much on our own team and our own farm system that sometimes you miss a little bit of what's happening around the game. And now I can watch, I can flip channels in between innings and watch as many games at a time as you can imagine. So it does give me a different perspective on the game as a whole.
Well, that's why you have to have
a sense
spies.
of Bobby, give us a sense of what you're doing now.
Well, I spend once a week on a podcast called the GM Files with Jim Duquette. We interview baseball greats or former executives, current and former players. Kind of helps me keep my toes in the water. We're also working with an equity firm to generate investment in baseball tech and baseball media and baseball events, and it's called Turn 2. And it's Dusty Baker turned me on to it, and it's been something that's been a lot of fun, being a senior advisor to the group and kind of as they work towards building this equity firm. And then I also been working with a company down in the South Bay that is looking for leadership, and just so I've been helping help grow their leadership team and their executive team and build their business model more in the home services business. And it's been fun to just get a different perspective on business outside of baseball. But my heart and toes still stay in the game, and probably always will. But at the right time, having interviewed for a couple of other executive positions with teams this past winter, hopefully there'll be more to come. In the right time, right situation, I'll be back in a position to enjoy the game on a regular basis.
Okay. And getting into baseball specifically, was going to ask you from a general manager's perspective, because I don't think you've ever had to deal with the situation with these social issues with regard to, games being canceled or all-star games being moved. I'm trying to think of like when the last major event happened when you were in either general manager or assistant general manager of some social event that might have, kind of turned up the heat, so to speak. Was there any time? I mean, because you've been in the game for quite a long time.
Well, there's a lot of events that happened over time, but I think that right now we're seeing what probably should have happened a long time ago, which is that players' voices are being elevated. Many times, people in leadership positions, including all the way to the commissioner, sometimes has sort of taken baseball track. And I think that what Rob did in moving the All-Star game recently is reacting to responding to the players' concerns about issues that invariably baseball has sort of, stayed focused on the game. And I think now the commissioner is listening to its players and trying to pay attention to what their heartbeat is telling them.
I was talking to Bobby just before we started that I was trying to think of what other major event very similar to this. And I was thinking about the Rodney King trials. Trial where they had, there was a lot of rioting going on, but I'm trying to remember, I don't remember what time of year it was. I want to say either April, October. Was there, any fallout, so to speak, or did guys just talk about it in the locker room? And
the only thing I can remember, and I can't remember exactly what this was, attached to, but there was a time where the Orioles a number of years ago played without fans in response to what was going on in Baltimore at the time. And, I can't be specific about exactly what was occurring, but it did require that they go ahead and play the game, but they just had no fans. And it was maybe only one game, maybe two, but it was in response to some of the riots and in reaction to events in Baltimore.
Do you remember that, Vern? Like what event it was?
I was not working in Baltimore at the time. I'm vaguely familiar with it, and having worked there and been around the team. Baltimore's a pretty proud, independent, blue collar city, completely separate from Washington D.C., which is 45 minutes away. So for them to make a move like that, I'm sure it created great discussion among players and coaches and organizations to make a move like that.
I mean, they've had baseball strikes, but that's been, the players specifically asking for something for themselves versus, seeing what kind of socioeconomic issues are outside. It's interesting, though, because you do get situations where, something major happens, be it an earthquake or a death in the family or something like that. And the players will, specifically say, yeah, this, baseball or football or basketball, it's like, that's my profession. That comes second. This, whatever it was, is life. And could have been like, Kobe's death. It just really affected, the players and that sort of thing. Let's see here. In fact, one quick thing here, because I was just mentioning Kobe. So his estate may end the partnership with Nike. And I'm kind of curious from your guys' perspective, how long do you think you can keep a brand like that going? At some point, it's going to kind of drop off.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a great question, but I shouldn't be amazed. I mean, he is a Tar Heel, but I had no idea that Michael Jordan's, brand would last so long. I mean, back to his early playing days, the first Air Jordans and whatever, 1984, 85, 86, somewhere in there. And they've transcended, decades. I mean, I have a 16-year-old son now who, wasn't even, born, back those 30 some years ago. And so anyway, it's you know, in the case of Kobe, I can't imagine not seeing his brand have some longevity to it. I don't know
Yeah.
if this is a pause or if this is a comma in the journey of his brand. I'm sure maybe some of the business managers of the estate are looking at various options. I don't know, but he's an incredible talent and a great
Sure.
friend of the game, and there's no way that people will ever find ways to continue his memory, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I think there's no other person more, I guess, qualified to speak on behalf of Kobe Bryant and his induction to the NBA Pro Basketball Hall of Fame than Michael Jordan, who will speak on his
Right.
behalf, because for these players today, Kobe was their guy growing
yeah,
up, and
yeah.
and so why not the originator, Mr. Nike brand himself?
That's right. Okay, hey guys, we're going to cut to our first commercial trivia question break here. The theme is again, what? I'm banned from baseball? All right. Which Dodger and Yankee pitcher was banned in 1992 for cocaine and alcohol abuse, then was reinstated, then retired in 1996 after being suspended 3 more times? All right, that's our trivia question. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to that question. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with Vern Glenn and our special guest, Bobby Evans. Our first trivia question on what? I'm banned from debate. I am banned from baseball. Which Dodger and Yankee pitcher was banned in 1992 for cocaine and alcohol abuse, then was reinstated, and then retired in 1996 after being suspended 3 more times?
For the sake of keeping the show going, I defer to Mr. Evans.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Well, I got to believe it's Steve Howe.
Yeah, that is correct. And let me ask you, since we're kind of on this kind of a question, how often have you had to have a situation like that yourself, where you've had to deal with players with suspensions and banning?
No, it's hard. I mean, we of course with the Major League Club, in the front office, I mean, we deal with 175 minor league players, 200 minor league players as well, and so we've had challenges. I mean, all these kids come from different walks of life, different environments, different circumstances, different family issues, and different ways to deal with their challenges. And some choose things that are destructive. And we've created an employee assistance program to help them deal with some of those issues. But ultimately, there's life choices, and addiction are very hard. And we've put people into rehab centers, and we've lost players' careers, but at times it's eventually cost some their lives. And it's hard for all of us in the game, because we believe in these kids. We watched them sometimes from even a high school age through college, and then into the minor league ranks, and then help them with pursuit of their dreams. And to see it crash because of addiction or behavior that causes them to lose that dream is very hard, and it's personally and professionally difficult.
I don't know how often it happens now, Bobby, but I know back in, I guess, the old days, to use the cliche, there was always 1, 2, maybe a handful of veterans on a club to kind of look at the young guys, kind of take them under their wing, keep an extra eye on them so they don't really stray, so to speak, kind of to teach them how to be a professional off the field. Is in your experience, is that an obligation that some of the veteran guys take on today?
Yeah, you know what? And it's interesting, because I think guys today, and I really saw this in a lot in Buster Posey and Hunter Pence, they didn't look at it as an obligation. They looked at it as an opportunity to invest. And so they embraced, and they're not the only ones, but they were certainly models for this. They embraced the younger players, made them feel immediately welcome, helped remind them of the contribution that they could make to this team. And and then there was time, on the road where they spent more time together. But yeah, it's part of embracing the player, and it's a different way of doing it. It's not looked at as an obligation; it's looked at as an opportunity.
And for you personally, I've always wanted to know this. I mean, when I had mentioned the fact that as a general manager, I mean, you cannot unplug. You cannot. I mean, I can think of playing a charity golf tournament with you, and in between shots, you're on the phone. Because there's, I'm not kidding, Edward. I mean,
I
there's
remember.
constantly, it's very fluid, and there's constantly things going on,
Yeah.
and Bobby needs to take that call or make that call, whether it's an issue with, you know, single A, free agent, double A, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I just it's an all-consuming kind of thing, and I don't think a lot of the fans kind of realize the responsibility that comes with a job like that.
Or some player comes up for a trade. You know, go ahead, Bobby.
Well, you always want to keep things moving, and you've got a tremendous amount of staff. You know, whether it's all the way down to a minor league clubhouse manager, trainer, all the way through your minor league managers and coaches, all the way to your major league staff, your medical staff, your scouts, pro scouts, amateur scouts. You have a tremendous number of people out there doing work, and you never want things to get slowed down because you're not available. So you're part of the chain of communication, and you always want to make sure that there's nothing that gets held up, whether it's a transaction, a trade, a player has a need, or an agent has a question, or there's a question about someone's health or status, or the analysis has come back with different expectations of their numbers and projections. You don't want to ever be a reason that information doesn't flow. So you can't miss those calls. You got to keep the chain moving and keep the team working and the wheels spinning. So.
How do you?
Maybe I've watched too much TV, or maybe too many viewings of Moneyball. But is it really like where you have an office and you have this big long white chalkboard or eraser board with just a series of names covered on it, where you just have to constantly be aware of what roster you have, or maybe you're at home and the phone buzzes. You get a text at 2 a.m. Oh, John Smith just hit the waiver wire. I mean, is it almost like that?
Yeah, well, we've digitized it, of course, now. So the big whiteboards have been condensed to these, monstrosity of screens.
Yeah.
But you still want to be able to see as many rosters and as many names at one time as you can. And yeah, those 2 a.m. texts, usually they're not good news at 2 a.m. But yeah, there's you got to watch the waiver wire. You got to watch the results of other teams and make sure you're ready to react when opportunities come.
I can remember Brian Sabian at one of the many press conferences, with you guys up there, and the soundbite just hammered home. We don't play golf a lot. We don't take vacations. We don't go on cruises. It's just baseball all the time. And then when your head hits the pillow, I guess you almost have to ask yourself, did I make the club better today?
Yeah. Well, and Brian lived it. I mean, Brian set a pace for all of us. We learned under him. We watched his work ethic. We watched his intensity, his expectations, and we tried to live up to those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Not only those of us in the office, but everybody on the field too. And yeah, it is a game that doesn't allow you a lot of time to yourself. And so yeah, when games are over, you're not leaving the ballpark after the last pitch. You're invariably there for another hour and a half or two of meetings just to prepare for the next game.
How do you balance that with, because you have a family, when you've either gone on vacation or just getting home, with being able to, I mean, my wife gets upset if I get a phone call and it's not even dinner time,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, those late at night, those are free times because everybody's asleep at home anyway. So working a couple hours after the game is easy because everybody's asleep at home anyway. You just got to make sure you get up the next morning with them for the breakfast and school and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it is this. We don't appreciate enough the sacrifice our families make. I mean, even in any workplace environment, but baseball is included in that. I mean, our families make sacrifices. I think that the ultimate reality is our family is going to make sacrifices, but what we don't want them to do is suffer. And so that's why we balance it where we can, our travel time and when we're home, we try to be present, of course. And ultimately it helps us if they're fans. And so they watch the games with us.
I mean, sometimes if I go home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my wife says, "What are you doing home early?" I said, "Hey, I put in my 3 hours work like everybody else." She doesn't appreciate that. I don't know why.
Another thing I've always wanted to know, Bobby, and this whole idea of building your roster, coming in with the lineup on a daily basis. There's the new school now of, well, the analytics say this, and so we got to bat this guy second and this one fifth because the numbers say this, and this should be the lineup today. Whereas, say, like the old school, and I'm just, Dusty Baker is just based on, feel and gut and the eye test, and this guy did this, and I'm gonna, the old school versus new school. What are your thoughts on that dynamic?
Well, I think the managers, really have to suffer. They do suffer the most because they're so used to, having, a plan in place that they incorporate. But I will say this: there's no way that Dusty's managing today with a forward thinker like James Click as the general manager if Dusty isn't, learning to work with the dynamic and adjusting, But James wouldn't be doing what he's doing with a manager with Dusty's experience if he didn't appreciate Dusty's insight and intuition and experience as well, and knowing the player. I mean, ultimately, Dusty knows the player. Dusty knows the player probably as good as any manager before they ever walk in that door of the clubhouse, and then he reads them from the moment they walk in before he makes out that lineup. Even with the analytics, ultimately Dusty's going to have an eye on this. And I'll give Bochy credit too. I mean, when we brought in some lineup suggestions to him. We made sure they were suggestions. They weren't guiding principles for him back in 2012, 13, 14, 15, and onward. I mean, these were guidance or suggestions for him, and then he had to digest it with what he knew, with what his staff knew, with what the medical team knew, and then ultimately the lineup goes out there. But it's a lineup that I hope that Dusty puts together at the end of the day, and as it was for Bochy. It was Bochy's lineup. Front office gives advisement, but when you hire a Bruce Bochy or a Dusty Baker, I mean, ultimately you're hiring experts in their field, so you've got to ultimately trust them.
There's front office people, there's general managers that weren't even alive when Dusty Baker was on deck April 8th, 1974, when Hank Aaron hit number 715.
Isn't that amazing? That was good. Hey guys, cut to our second commercial break here. Again, the theme is what? I'm banned from baseball? Which baseball player was banned from baseball for life, but then later reinstated by Commissioner Peter Ueberroth in 1985? All right, that's our trivia question. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to that question, we'll see if you know it. Which baseball player was banned from baseball for life, but then later reinstated by Commissioner Peter Ueberroth in 1985? All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn and our special guest, Bobby Evans. Trivia question number 2. Which baseball player was banned from baseball for life, but then later reinstated by Commissioner Peter Ueberroth in 1985? Anyone?
I'm giving you a blank stare. So, I defer to Mr. Evans.
Yeah, I prefer not to guess. So I am not clear about who this is, because I don't recall anybody being banned for life and then being reinstated. I know that there's been suspensions from baseball at one time, and then those were reinstated, but I didn't realize it was a ban for life. So I'm going to choose not to guess.
Okay. My favorite baseball player of all time, Willie Mays.
See, I had no idea that it was a ban for life.
Yeah, because of gambling.
He appeared in a commercial. He appeared in a commercial for a gambling entity.
I backtrack. He himself wasn't banned for gambling like Pete Rose, but yeah, because he was mixed in, let's say, with that crowd.
He was appeared in a commercial or an advertisement, as I understand it.
And didn't Mickey Mantle do the same thing?
He did.
He did.
But that's why I never knew they were banned for life. I mean, I knew there was a suspension, and I knew they were ultimately reinstated by Ueberroth. I chose not to guess because I didn't want to be wrong about that, because I never knew it was a ban for life. Because
you didn't want to hear me go, wrong.
No, especially with the name Willie Mays.
I know. I know. He's my favorite player. I was going to ask you one more question that because we were kind of still talking about managers and how often or how do you feel about a hands-off approach versus, I mean, you've been around baseball your whole life for the most part, where you go, gosh, because as a fan, sometimes, it's like, oh, why is he putting that pitcher in? What's he thinking? That sort of thing. How
or in today's game, why did he leave this pitcher in too long? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you either bite your tongue or were you dealing with some managers who it's like you could have made a suggestion, or ones who say, hey, you know what, you're over there and I'm over here.
Well, there's a collaborative effort, on the front, from the front office to the manager and the staff's perspective, and we try to collaborate and be on the same page about what the game plan is. And I think that over the years, even when there was disagreement, there ultimately was a collaborative effort to to come to a conclusion that you could agree to about what the order of pitching depth you had, and what role they had and where they were placed in the relative game. But there is going to be disagreement, and at some level that becomes a give and take. Sometimes manager will go your way, and sometimes you got to just let the manager go his way. But and if it doesn't work out, then you adjust the next day. I mean, there's give and take.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the '88 World Series when Lasorda puts Gibson in. And I'm thinking, okay, gosh, this guy's hobbling to the plate, and and I'm thinking, what's a general manager going? Wait a minute, he's hurt, and you're putting him in this position, And then Lasorda looks like a genius, and Gibson hits the game-winning home run.
Yeah, that was the stuff of legends, as Bob Costas already told it. He was the in-game on-field reporter for that particular game. So
Wow.
He's in the camera well in the Dodgers dugout, and he can hear Gibson in the back grunting as he's taking hacks in the indoor cage. And some coach goes to Lasorda and almost in comic book fashion says, I think he's got another hack in him. and he goes up there and he takes Eckersley deep.
Yeah. That is
Well,
so
he
funny.
fought off. I don't know how many pitches.
Yeah.
I don't know if the count was 3-2 or 2-2, but I mean, it was quite an epic at bat. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's funny. And although I was an A's fan and Giants fan, but in the World Series, you got to root for whoever's in there. I got to say, it was still exciting enough to. In fact, even if I remember correctly, didn't Canseco hit a grand slam in that game?
Not that game.
No, not that game.
Was it that
I thought
game?
that was game one. Yeah, I thought so. But I got to be wrong on that. But yeah,
you might be right. I was thinking it was a lower scored game, but you might be right.
Yeah, well,
I'll say this though: after that ball hit the I bet you Kirk Gibson never paid for a meal in Los Angeles again.
Yeah. and Detroit was going, no, why did we get rid of him?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on here just a little bit. Okay, so Deshaun Watson. Okay, his attorney claims all 22 women. I'm assuming it's capped at 22. I mean, I haven't heard any more women come. Maybe there's a rule. Once you hit 22, you're done. He's claiming that all 22 women are lying, and I'm thinking, do you think this is like the defense going, this is the only thing that we can really come up with? I mean, because even if it's like, well, consensual over here, and well, okay, maybe this one wasn't. It's like you got to be 100% on everything to win.
I'm going to defer to the legal system in this one because for the longest time, and I don't even know if he's officially been charged. But the only thing I hear, I don't know about you, Bobby, but all I hear is comments and quotes from attorneys from both sides. But I haven't heard anything from the team other than we trust the legal process, or certainly haven't heard anything from Watson himself, and I haven't heard anything from the NFL. I mean, I don't even know from a legal standpoint. I don't even know where we stand with how this issue is moving forward.
It's probably for the best the way they handle that. Bobby, if you're in that situation as general manager of a player in that kind of situation, what do you do?
I mean, it's incredibly troubling. I mean, to imagine, one woman making that kind of accusation, to there being over 20. I mean, it's just hard to it's hard to know how to feel, about it. I think that one of the challenges you have, in the front office, with your players, is your players, as much as they are employees of the organization, they become, like family, in a sense that,
Mm.
so you always want to believe the best in your own family, and in this case, your own players. You want to believe the best in them, but this is an extraordinary, number of accusations, and you know, I have no visibility to the truth. And as a general manager, you're probably going to get some insights on some of the details, maybe from your legal counsel, and so you might have some, foresight on what could transpire if it goes to trial, or what happens. But it's got to just be devastating for, everyone involved, from the victims or potential victims, all the way through to the families involved of those victims and potential victims, as well as to the accused and the accused family, the organization, the city. I mean, it's just awful. And it's I know that the truth will hopefully be clear at some point. But in the meantime, it's just awful for everyone.
Yeah, the optics
Even
don't look
even
good,
from a
but at the same time, I mean, we're just kind of going off of what we read or hear, or what's been reported, and in this Twitter world, which is opinion based, we're left to be part of the court of public opinion, and
yeah,
which I think is incredibly sad, but.
it is.
Um,
It
but
is.
I'm with you, Bobby. I hope this just kind of plays out, and the and the truth and the actual facts of the case come out.
Right. No question.
Okay. Um, Moving on here, Bryce Love was drafted in 2019 by Washington football team, but he suffered a torn ACL in his last college game.
Yep.
How do you think this affects college players, opting to go out to the NFL early? It's just one of those things where it's like, the idea is, hey, you better get to the NFL early, or else you could get hurt and lose your chances.
Yeah,
Well,
Bobby,
that's
I'm
what.
sure you've gone through this with players
Yeah.
before that,
Sure.
guys, whether in high school or whatever, and
Yeah.
you're really taking a good hard look at them. And let's just say it's a pitcher, and then something happens. It's a sore arm, it's a dead arm, it's a rotator cuff, it's something like that. I mean, just maybe when the contract is drafted up, and then something happens, and then you have
Right.
to kind of wait and see how because you're investing a lot in this player to ultimately come up and make this club better when he is, ready to come up to the show.
Well, that's why you're seeing some college football bowl games now with some of the better players not playing in those bowl games. After the layoff of 2 or 3 weeks, they don't play just because they don't want to affect their position in the draft. Now, in baseball, with the College World Series, by the time the College World Series actually happens, now the players have already been drafted, so they know where they were taken, but still something could happen, and if something happens and it causes an injury of significant proportion, it could impact the club's ability to offer a signing bonus that is expected. And so there's risk. I mean, there's risk with every athlete, every game, every day. From the time you start your high school career through your college career and into your minor league career and ultimately into your major league career. There's risk, and these players know their body best, and hopefully even with all out play, they know how to pull back prevent from an accident of hitting a wall, or but nothing stops if a ligament's giving way. You're not necessarily going to get an early read on that if you're a pitcher. So there's tremendous risk. Again, we're seeing more of it in college football than I think we're seeing it in college baseball. But players are not. It's not lost on them that their status in the draft is affected sometimes by performance and certainly by injury. So they're monitoring that closely.
Yeah, I had a friend who was a pitcher in high school, and he was drafted by the White Sox, and he was throwing in the high 80s, hitting almost 90, in high school. And the thing is, your arm is still, you're still a kid, And,
Still developing.
then you got the high school baseball coach who wants to show how good he is with the wins and all that, and pitches him too much. And sure enough, threw his arm out and just was never the same, and just never made it past, I think, single A. It's really kind of sad. All right, guys, here's our last trivia question. What? I'm banned from baseball, and then we'll have our thoughts for the day. We have a short segment right after this. All right, which pitcher was banned from baseball in 1980 and still later became a member of the Hall of Fame? So obviously, in this case, it was not banned for life, right? Email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Which pitcher was banned from baseball in 1980? And I think in this case, it was drug use, I believe.
Okay.
All right. And still later became a member of the Hall of Fame.
Wow, what a comeback story then.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'd say so. All right. When we come back, we are going to have just a couple of quick minutes for thoughts for the day and any last-minute comments from our special guest, Bobby Evans, former San Francisco Giants assistant general manager and general manager during the World Series wins. All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 101. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn and our special guest, Bobby Evans. It's last time for today because it's our last segment. A third trivia question: which pitcher was banned from baseball in 1980 and still later became a member of the Hall of Fame? Tough one, huh?
Fergie Jenkins?
Yes! Ferguson
No.
Jenkins.
Wow.
Very good. Mr.
All
Glenn. I like it. Well, Bobby, it's a pleasure having you on. You'll like our thoughts for the day because sometimes we have a little bit of puns and sometimes we have a little bit of just fun thoughts.
I like the dad puns.
Yeah, I always try to come up with some really good dad puns. In fact, this one's kind of cute too. All right, here's our thoughts for the day. What's the fastest liquid on Earth? Milk. It's pasteurized before you can even see it.
Nice.
Oh, you
Thank
like
you.
that one, huh? All right.
Okay,
I thought that was
good.
pretty good. And I don't buy fat-free milk. I guess these are thoughts about milk for the day. And I don't buy fat-free milk because I don't want to contribute to cows having body issues.
Nice. Thank you.
I thought that was pretty good too. All right. Bobby, again, thank you for joining us on Sports Econ 101. And for the audience, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions and some funny thoughts for the day. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.